Thank you for the thought. I've been thinking, and I've shared this with you a few times. That friendship is the most refined stage of love because my love chooses. The father? Naturally, by blood obligation. Do you need to love your son? Tomorrow the same thing. Siblings. The obligation of blood makes us almost uncomfortable. The need to love is why we suffer so much when we realize we don't love someone we have a blood bond with. And sometimes we need long periods of therapy to heal the guilt we carry. Yes, why? It's a cultural imposition. A father has to love his son. A mother has to love her child. A child has to love her father, even if they don't love us. Cultivate this love, right? Even if they don't offer us reasons to continue loving. Yes, because disappointments can be so many. That love has become fiscal, and we feel guilty about it. But in friendship, no. No one is obliged to be a friend. If there's one thing in life we are free to do, it is to choose our friends. You can't choose your father. You can't choose your children. You can't choose your siblings. And neither can the relatives that come as a consequence. But you can choose friends. A friend is the one you bring into your life. Is it the one you met by chance, and without any obligation you wanted to love? No obligation. Francisco faces his experience, consecrated thus. He was born into a religious family. But until then he had not experienced God. Perhaps he had gone through the context of obligations. He had attended Mass, as was customary. He was a handsome young man, full of life, rich, and suddenly descending into the dark side of Assisi. Anyone who has been there has had the opportunity to see the distinction between the two cities, the city where the nobles, the rich, the merchants lived, and that valley where the lepers lived. Francis was a man of many friends. In one of his many comings and goings through the surroundings of Assisi, he had the experience of being arrested by the eyes of a leper, and that bothered me, and that awakened in him a desire to offer to those who live forgotten a little of his generosity that he was already accustomed to offering to his friends, because he was already a generous boy. But he was generous with those who were on the same level, on the same level. But he discovered that there was a more generous way of loving. I want to offer what I could not reciprocate. He became a friend of the poor. In fact, that is the great mark of Francis, being a friend of the poor. And poor, look how wonderful. He does not limit himself. By being human, no. The poor are all those who are defenseless. It is that living being that is defenseless. They have this love for all creatures. Francisco began a love so intensely from that leper that everything he saw as a living reality, he began to respect as his brother. And then he began to call the wind his brother, the sun, the moon his sister. He began to identify that God is present in the waters of that river, that God is present in the sea, that the sea is his brother. What is the river? Francisco inaugurates in the church the theology of ecology, a way of perceiving God in created realities. Do you know a complete conversion? In all dimensions of his life were passed through the sieve of this friendship with God. By identifying God, a friend, Francisco becomes a hand of all realities. By making friends with God, by identifying in God, the suffering face of humanity and the created world, Francisco brings us a very precious mysticism. Here, in fact, it has always been in the Gospels. Wasn't he the one who invented? But the beautiful thing about God's manifestation in Francis' life is that the church had forgotten everything. This is because we can live far from the gospel, even being Catholic, even though the church is in dark times. When does the church turn so much to be able to forget its charisma? At that moment, Francis makes a true revolution. Could we say a reform? So much so that when he feels motivated in his mystical experiences, God tells him that he should reform the church. And he didn't know that the church God was referring to in that revelation was the institution. But he, at first, understood that the church God wants him to reform is the chapel of Santa Maria. And he, along with his friends, goes. Does he go? Surrounded by his first disciples, who were already converted to see his conversion, because this is loved. It's wonderful, isn't it? From a virtuous life. It spreads. It contaminates those around. So those rich friends who witnessed and lived alongside Francis, his selflessness, they wanted to selfless themselves too. Great saints were born from this experience of Francis. Saint Anthony himself, Saint Clare, men and women who saw it up close. That God changed Francis' life for the better. That boy who was already generous became even more so. And that boy who was rich learned that he possessed a wealth superior to that which his parents offered him. That wealth the one his parents offered him. What wealth comes to live in our eyes when we truly convert to the gospel, changing the way he looked at the world. Yes, it instilled in him a sensitivity that made a difference, and that marks the history of Christianity to this day. I regret that for a long time, Francis' teachings were forgotten by the Franciscans themselves. Yes, it is possible that I am a Franciscan, and that I am already far from Francis' charisma. Is it possible that I am a Christian today, yet far from Christ's motives? Francis the man, who began to understand that the Christian experience has to change our relationship with everything and everyone, starting with the respect we have. For years and years and years, I was a Christian, without listening to the speech of the priests who evangelized me. That polluting the river is a sin. That throwing trash on the ground is a sin. I heard a lot about the sins of sexuality. That was what I heard most throughout my life. With Christianity, which only spoke of sexuality, which was reduced in its I'm speaking from my experience. I only heard that. It was the big concern, guiding us so that we could have a healthy sex life. Okay, great. But we can't deprive others of understanding Christianity as a proposal for life. Saint Anthony himself, Saint Clare, men and women who saw it up close. That God changed Francis' life for the better. That boy who was already generous became even more so. And that boy who was rich learned that he possessed a wealth superior to that which his parents offered him. That wealth the one his parents offered him. What wealth comes to live in our eyes when we truly convert to the gospel, changing the way he looked at the world. Yes, it instilled in him a sensitivity that made a difference, and that marks the history of Christianity to this day. I regret that for a long time, Francis' teachings were forgotten by the Franciscans themselves. Yes, it is possible that I am a Franciscan, and that I am already far from Francis' charisma. Is it possible that I am a Christian today, yet far from Christ's motives? Francis the man, who began to understand that the Christian experience has to change our relationship with everything and everyone, starting with the respect we have. For years and years and years, I was a Christian, without listening to the speech of the priests who evangelized me. That polluting the river is a sin. That throwing trash on the ground is a sin. I heard a lot about the sins of sexuality. That was what I heard most throughout my life. With Christianity, which only spoke of sexuality, which was reduced in its I'm speaking from my experience. I only heard that. It was a big concern, guiding us so that we could have a healthy sex life. Okay, great. But we can't deprive others of understanding Christianity as a proposal for life that encompasses all realities. Today, is there a very sad fact? Want to see what I'm going to give you here? That I learned last week watching the news. A piece of information that spoke precisely about the crime we committed against our own. Our rivers. Where is it? Anyway, I won't be able to specify the exact amount. But if I'm not mistaken, there are tons and tons of toxic waste that the city of Sao Paulo deposits in the Tite River every day. That number, which I don't have here now, but which there was, is frightening. Every day, in the name of our progress. The city of Sao Paulo alone deposits tons and tons of toxic waste in the waters of the Tite River. When did I hear that information? I, who have been bothered for a long time by these ecological issues, because the way we treat our home, the world we live in, is regrettable. I see it from the river. Yes, I was born standing on the banks of a river, where I swam in that river when I was a child. Today, there is hardly any water left. Today, our cities face droughts, all because of our deforestation. Not long ago, our President of the Republic wanted to offer 11 areas, extremely precious, for mining. How much does our progress cost? We deforest with the greatest nerve. This drought now, for example, while the fire's caused by us. I'm only going to cut down this tree because it will make my construction easier. Always thinking about our needs. We forget that the world needs our respect just as other people do. Oh, my God in heaven. But we don't hear about it. It wasn't included in our catechesis. No one told us that respect for water is as sacred as respect for other human beings, that every living being deserves our respect. It's an evolution, and Francisco lived this evolution. Why? Because he had a profound experience of friendship with you. God didn't convert just a part of Francisco's heart. As we often insist on leading our lives of conversion, he converted only a part of our lives. Didn't he convert here, or the filter that goes over our eyes? I can't think that God converted me just to have a healthy sexuality, right? I have to think about the conversion of my sexuality. I have to think about the conversion of my character, the way I treat the people who work with me. I have to think about the way I treat nature. I'm a Christian, but I pour the dirty oil we use to fry and cook our food down the drain every day. We pour it down the drain, that which will poison our waters, our lands. We dig our artesian wells without any control. We pollute our soils. We produce food with kilos and kilos of pesticides that will permanently live on our earth. We judge plastic everywhere. We judge our plastics, our seas. We pollute our beaches, and it doesn't bother us. It doesn't enter into the dimension of our conversion because our conversion, it was in parts. Francisco's conversion is total. It changes the way that man looked at the world. He does. I say again, and he didn't invent this. He has the experience that is in John chapter 15, verse 1 onwards. The gospel says it like this: I am the true vine, and my Father is the true vine. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes so that it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I will abide in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you so you too cannot bear fruit unless you remain, they say. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who remains in me, as I remain in him, bears much fruit. Then you can do nothing. Whoever does not remain in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. Such branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, pray whatever you want to say. In this, my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit. And become mine, he said. The experience of friendship that Francisco had was precisely from the verb to remain. There is no friendship, the deepening of friendship, without the verb to remain, which is precisely that opportunity we have to enter into the intimacy of one another. And don't trivialize the word, intimacy. Intimacy is not having that friendship. Zeno, not virtually, who speaks from time to time there. No, intimacy is having it within your home, within your life. Is it that person you talk to regularly? Is it that person you know? In the context of your life? What are the battles you face? People you truly share your life with. Who did you truly share your life with? They are those who remain. The experience of remaining is what strengthens the bond. I was saying before, it's not that there's no point in being a father. There's no point in being a mother. There's no point in being a brother. Because this love out of obligation doesn't survive. It can even be labeled without having repercussions within us. Why? What makes us love? It's the verb to remain. If I'm this boy's father, but I don't remain with him, soon I'll just be a relative. The bond is said, it is made. Love. It is only possible when we remain. Love is only possible when we conjugate mosey daily without ceasing. The experience of intimacy that the verb to remain allows us. So, what Francisco experienced was precisely discovering if part of this great vine, that he, there in his surroundings, in the city of Assisi, could transform, bringing sap to those who lack the knowledge of this leader. It's so beautiful because today, when we see Francis known throughout the world, even inspiring our Pope to have the same name as him, that prophetically brings us a new time in the church of more clarity, more light, more green, more courage, let's say, right? That he could talk about the problems we have, face them. Pope Francis has done. He has fulfilled a beautiful, challenging mission of putting his finger on the wounds of the church that suffers in us, in me and you. Today, this Francis is known worldwide. The saint we celebrate today is known worldwide. He inspires many people, even those who are not Christian. Do you have an admiration for the life of Francis? But at that time, he began by infecting the city of Assisi, by changing the rule that nobles should not go down to the Valley of the Lepers, but the people were there, of whom Francis wanted to stay friend, becoming friends by staying with them. He didn't just go there from time to time. He decided to stay with these people, not just knowing their name, but knowing their story, helping to heal their wounds, being a true friend, choosing those people. Friendship is a love that chooses.